President Donald Trump addressed the nation from the White House on Wednesday, saying the war in Iran, which he once claimed would last only days, is now close to its end. Now, while he spoke of winding down the conflict, Israeli strikes on Tehran continued, and oil prices surged past $100 a barrel. Now, with these developments shaking global markets and alliances, I'm joined by Gerlinde Niehus, former Deputy Director for Defense and Security Cooperation at NATO, to discuss the implications. So glad to have you here with us on World News tonight. Gerlinde, let me ask you straight up, what do you make of President Donald Trump's address? What stood out to you the most?
Well, I think in many ways it was a pathetic little nothing burger, because he didn't say much new on the war on Iran. He was not very precise on the goals to be achieved, although he claimed they are close to achieving them. But when it comes to NATO, he didn't say anything. so perhaps that was a relief to allies that they didn't get the extra bashing. But there was nothing on NATO in that speech, and there was also fairly little new content in the speech.
But he did suggest that countries dependent on Middle East oil should take the lead in keeping the Strait of Hormuz open. How realistic do you think this expectation is, and what does it mean for European and actually Gulf allies here?
Well, I think the Europeans under UK leadership have started to look into a coalition of the willing. I think they met today in the UK, actually. But clearly it's the beginning of the process. And there's still the prevailing view that Trump started this illegal war without any consultation with the Europeans. He got himself into a real mess, dragged also by the Israeli, and now he wants others to sort of help him out of the mess. So my take is that should the Europeans go down that route, and so far, they have only started discussion and planning, they should definitely combine it with asking the question, well, if we're going to help you, Donald Trump, what is in for us? So what do you give in return to our support? Which is a bit a question I have missed in the current debate so far.
So what do you think what do you think, did come out or will come out or should come out of these 40 foreign ministers in virtual talks? Do we see an end to this war in sight? Do we see the Strait of Hormuz crisis being resolved anytime soon?
Well, it would be up to Trump and Netanyahu, first and foremost, to decide whether they want to end the war, and if so, under which conditions, and the Iranian on the other side. Yeah? The Europeans so far are only considering to support keeping the Strait of Hormuz open after the immediate hostilities. So they're not looking into becoming party to this war, and I think that's a wise move.
Gerlinde, do you think that Trump's rhetoric could actually accelerate European efforts for strategic autonomy? Or do you think will the United States actually remain the key security backstop despite warnings?
Well, I think this has already started, and in many ways, I think it needs to be accelerated, because what we have seen since the beginning of his second term, but also, if you remember, in his first term, he was threatening to leave NATO back in 2018. Huh? So NATO bashing is nothing new with Donald Trump. He has repeatedly put into question the commitment to Article 5, which arguably is the bedrock of NATO, the collective defense clause, and thus substantially weakened NATO's credibility, clearly to the delight of Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping. Yeah? He has intensified this very damaging rhetoric in the last days, Trump that is, by calling allies cowards. So bottom line is that Europeans, wherever they are in Europe, together with the Canadians, really need to get on their own feet, grow up, mobilize the political will, and make sure that they can achieve the necessary level of capacity to act as Europeans, guided by, at best, a coherent and holistic European security strategy, which is still lacking.
And that was actually my next question to you is what kind of strategy do you think they should be implementing, or what steps should they be taking?
Well, I think the process started in the Commission between Ursula von der Leyen and also the External Action Service, Kaja Kallas. But clearly, I mean, it requires broader political leadership in order to have a holistic strategy, which in my mind should not only zoom in on the classical, if you wish, defense military aspects, but also needs to look into how can we become, as Europeans, more independent in the digital domain? How can we limit our dependency in the economic domain? So that we need a holistic approach for security and defense. And that's something where the European Commission, the External Action Service, can make a first suggestion, but clearly it would require involvement from heads of states and government in order to bring it to that level.
Let me ask you, Trump also threatened to quote unquote, finish the job in Iran very quickly. I want to ask you, what are the realistic military and logistical limits to achieving that?
Well, I think that's a question you would have to ask to Donald Trump because he may know what he wants to achieve. I don't think it has been clear to anyone what he wants to achieve. He keeps on claiming. He already claimed in June last year that he had annihilated the Iranian nuclear program, which then turned out to be one of the false informations, even corrected by his own intelligence services. So he keeps on claiming that he's close to achieving it, and then it turns out he's not. But bottom line, I think he will at one point simply declare victory, regardless of the facts on the ground.
And finally, I just want to ask you, I mean, with everything that we've just spoken about here in a nutshell, how do you assess the future of NATO and European efforts to assert autonomy?
Well, as I said before, I think we have to work towards a very coherent and holistic Europeanization of NATO. So look into not only replacing or be ready to replace US commanders in the integrated structure, but equally build up the capabilities, especially in areas such as command and control, information, surveillance, reconnaissance. So all the if you wish, the structure the US has been providing, but also generate the political leadership and the political will on our side, where we are still lacking the muscles. So bottom line, I think we need to work towards, as Europeans, as a situation where we can act independently from the US and from China.
Thank you so much, Gerlinde Niehus, former Deputy Director for Defense and Security Cooperation at NATO, for being my guest here on World News Tonight.
Thank you. Good night.
And thank you for watching this episode of World News Tonight here on TVP World. I'm Diana Skaya. I'll see you next time.